What is up, my ninjas? I'm Strydent, and today I am here with a special guest. You guys probably have listened to their podcast many times. They've got one of the best, if not the best, GI Joe podcast out there. Like I was saying earlier, brings out the big kid in all of us. And I am here with Steven from GI Joburg. How you doing, man?
Greetings, Strydent. Yeah, man, I'm doing well. I'm very interested in getting into a little debate with you this evening.
Yeah, it'll be fun, man. It'll be fun. I'm glad you had time and we finally were able to connect and do this again, you know?
This topic, to my mind, is so important that GI Joburg is doing a first, and we are releasing this on YouTube. So those of you who are YouTube GI Joburg viewers and have not yet dabbled with our podcast on Podbean and iTunes, I suppose this is your little taste of what we get up to. Episodes are longer in length, and we talk, whatever happens to spring to mind. And tonight, it's all about this tension that has emerged, this split in our GI Joe community. We have people on both sides, vintage purists and modern era purists, and it seems like there's a little bit of a little bit of a shunning or slighting of the other side.
Yeah.
So we're going to discuss from our respective points of view and try and harmonize these things. In case you vintage guy.
Uh-oh. I lost you for a second.
I am predominantly a vintage guy.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I'm mostly a modern guy.
And you... Yep. That's not to say Strydent doesn't possess vintage G.I. Joe stuff. No. He does have a Defiant launch complex, if I'm not mistaken.
And
I do have a... Yeah?
I managed to find an MMC. I'm actually about to finish that review. I found one earlier this...
Outstanding.
What was it? September. Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, that is terrific and very well integrated with modern era figures as well. I mean, it's a spacious vehicle. It doesn't necessarily it isn't necessarily prohibitive to one construction or the other.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And you have have quite a few.
I have
modern era figures too.
Of modern era figures.
Yeah.
And vehicles. But here's my backstory, if I may just indulge in it. I mean, I realize I'm perhaps one of the rarer cases of a Joe collector who never stopped. I've always been collecting actively. When GI Joe stopped in '94, I would sort of trawl through flea markets and dusty old toy shops, and I kept buying up until the advent of eBay in sort of '99, and ever since then, like that was my avenue for years and years and years, filling holes in the vintage collection, holes that I will never fully fill. I mean, I think I will be able to collect GI Joe until the day I die and not ever complete anything. I guess that just speaks volumes about the difficulty of collecting when you're located at the tip of Africa.
Well, it's a plus and a minus though for you. I mean, think about your wallet. I mean, a lot of times. And this is one of the things I was really happy to hear from HCC 788 when he was on your previous episode of your podcast. He mentioned, kind of having a game plan when you collect, not just getting caught up in getting everything and you can't even enjoy it. You know what I mean? So, budget is important. So it's good that, if something kind of slows down the amount that you can get your hands on at one time, then it might be good in the long run because, your girlfriend won't be pissed at you for spending all the money on Joe's. You won't be pissed at yourself or something, down the line that like, damn, I could have bought this, but instead I bought, not that you'd be mad, but you know what I'm saying? Like these things pop up and sometimes you got to do your adulting and then you got to get back to, being a big kid so you can balance the equation. I guess balance. And that's the theme of this whole, video, balance. It's all about balance,
Absolutely. Parameters for your collecting, so important. Because then, if you buy everything, obviously you're going to bankrupt yourself and just not enjoy the things that you have quite
Yeah,
as much as you would if you were more focused and treasured everything perhaps that much more, because it wasn't about volume or quantity. It was about
exactly.
completing the things that are nearest and dearest to you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I embraced new sculpt era Joes when they came out, but they quickly were shown up as being inferior to the old school stuff. So I went back to vintage and continued to collect and complete that
Uh-huh.
run. And then the 25th anniversary stuff. This was the stuff that was going to make everything. It was going to change the game.
Yeah.
It was going to make all your vintage Joes all of a sudden seem tacky and out of date, because I went for the hype. I was all over that. When I saw the images, I mean, the best commercial I can recall was in Toy Fair magazine, where they showed 1982 Snake Eyes side
Mm-hmm.
by side with 2007 Snake Eyes, and it was
Exactly.
just night and day. I was
Yeah.
like, what? These are the ultimate toys ever produced. GI Joe articulation plus all the mod cons of like removable web gear, holsterable weapons, more forgiving grips in the hands, double jointed knees. I mean, it was just an absolute wet dream.
Yeah.
Um, what soured it for me, I suppose, and this is a story that so many people in my position tell, is we can never achieve the kind of opulence and variation that we got. No, variation is not the right word, because let's face it, modern era stuff has exploded. Like, there are so many variations of using the same parts in different configurations. So variation is a poor choice of words, but opulence of the 80s
Yeah.
can never be repeated. So we get the most incredible figures, but we'll never get
The vehicles to go with them.
complementary vehicles.
Exactly.
Yeah. The
So,
shining moments of modern era vehicles were basically reaching back in time and bringing out an old classic and
exactly.
dusting it off and putting it at an affordable price points and getting it out to people. I speak about the Sky Striker from the 30th anniversary, and I speak about
Uh-oh. Lost you again.
our you don't have to trawl through vintage stores and find a beat up Tomahawk anymore. No, you can buy one at retail,
It's true.
and that was great.
Yeah. I wish they would.
But
Well, before I say this, and I don't mean to cut you off, I want to go
yes,
back to
no,
the
no, I'm
begin
done.
to Oh, you're done. I want to go back to what you said when you were
Hmm.
talking about the new era, new sculpt era. What is it
Yeah,
about
what was your handle on that?
I there's some of those figures I loved, and then there's other ones that just looked
Hmm.
goofy, proportion wise. I know a couple of the artists that did the designs for the majority of the beginning portion of the new sculpt era, like the crazy Snake Eyes with the crazy visor. You know what I'm talking about? He had I think it was the very first new sculpt era Snake Eyes. He was all black and silver. The gray, he had gray, almost like,
Were there
yeah, it
blue
was like,
highlights to him? And
yeah, yeah,
he had a T crotch.
yes. Wait, no, not this. I mean, after the original.
Okay,
These are
right.
the O-ring construction ones. God, I need to look at which one I'm trying to which one I'm trying to say, but um,
I think a lot of us have kind of blanked that from our memory, but it did give us a very, very good visor Snake Eyes. In the same
yeah,
vein as V2,
yeah, it,
but it was in a sort of a gray coloring. He had wonderful sculpted details, like little throwing knives on his chest.
mm-hmm.
He was a cool Snake Eyes. But I'm trying to recall the one that you're speaking of.
I
So you
want
say
to
a friend
say,
of yours designed that?
yeah,
Nice.
he designed the Scarlet, that Agent Scarlet, when the one that had the figure had broad shoulders. She still was colored very much like the
They,
original, but she had the GI Joe on her like her bracer. She had like a forearm bracer,
oh, I've
and
got that figure. I've got
yeah,
that figure.
yeah, he designed
Oh,
that,
yes.
and those ones I didn't mind as much. They just looked like they were wearing so much armor. So that was the that was the thing. Actually, I just found the Snake Eyes. It's a black recolor of it's version 14. He
Okay.
is from 2002. He has the big holsters on his legs that you can't actually put anything in. And he also had like GI Joe going down one of his ankles. But he was all black, gray, and silver buckles and knee pads and stuff all over the place. But he came with a. It was the version that was in the Spy Troops animation. Did you ever see that?
I think I have this figure as well.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was a
Yep,
cool,
yep.
update. I mean, it's when we look at him now, it's still kind of like he has elements that work and then elements that they needed to get rid of. And go full commando or go full on ninja. But when you go in between and he looks like a ninja just wearing commando gear, it kind of doesn't work as well. Um,
Hmm.
when we look at the
Strydent, I've got to be honest with you, man. Like, New
uh
Sculpt era GI Joe actually made me a core collector,
really,
as in the core,
yeah, yeah,
really, because around about that era, Leonard, obviously master copy artists, um, they put out that initial wave of T-crotch
oh
guys,
yeah,
and they introduced something that GI Joe still hasn't. Oh, no, no, wait. Yeah, GI Joe in modern era figures has started to embrace slightly, uh, but it just hasn't been done nearly as well. They introduced paint washers.
oh you're
All of a
talking
sudden, I was
about
like,
when they were
wow,
dirty,
all of these
yeah.
Hasbro figures look like toys.
Hmm.
Whereas these guys look like they've dragged themselves through the mud of the jungles of the world.
But
They look fantastic. They were so inviting. They were like, they were the figures that you wanted to play with outside. Whereas G.I.
yeah.
Joe looked good, around base.
Well, I personally, and I don't know if maybe this is because a lot of people I've seen it on your channel. They always comment on the fact that you play with your figures or you review the figures out in the elements. I want to put the dirt on those figures myself. Like any old like if you see one of my favorite Joes has always been what's his name, Snow Job, and I constantly put him out in the elements. If it was really cold snow, obviously I had him out there in the ice. If it was icy rain, I had him out there in there to the point where it even brittled him faster. So I had to get a couple, new ones to, like replace parts or just to, because I had completely decimated the previous one. But if you look,
Yeah, extreme cold will do that to you. I have a little anecdote about that.
uh-huh.
Inspired by GI Joburg's sort of toys being in their natural environment type videos, Mike Mercy. I
Oh
don't know if you
yeah,
follow his channel.
oh yeah, I've seen
He
him.
uh, he did a Toys Gone Wild
Uh-huh.
series of episodes, and he reviewed the Snowcat out in like
Yep.
Canadian negative temperatures, like
Yep.
sub-zero. Uh,
Wow. It's
Yeah, so I feel a bit bad about that. But he says he doesn't mind. He's like, yeah, battle damage.
yeah. I mean, and that stuff is awesome too because I tell my sons. Well, I've told the older one, and he kind of is back and forth with his Joes. He really loves the 25th stuff because it mimics the cartoon, so that's more what he always goes for. My 4-year-old, he's just all over the place with all different types of toys. We haven't given him Joes yet because the parts are small, so we're waiting till he's a little bit older. But I always tell him, when your figure breaks in battle, it's like the best thing because then you have a story. If you have Batman going up against the Joker and the Batman punches Joker and his arm comes off. Batman broke the Joker's arm, you know what I mean? Like you have a story for those two figures. If you're fighting with your Joe vehicles, and somehow during a dogfight you drop one of the planes, and you were in the middle of some kind of maneuver. You wanted maybe a Rattler to shoot down a Storm Eagle or something, and it actually happens. You have that to add to the story of what happened, how that happened. This is part of your figures or your vehicles, history. And, I love
And
when...
this is precisely why I need kids, Ewart, because I I play so gingerly with all the modern stuff
uh
that it doesn't get battle scars.
Oh, no. Play with it roughly,
Whereas
man.
if I pick up my childhood collection,
Uh-huh.
which once again, I'm very in a very fortunate position to still possess.
Hmm.
Like I can pick up an old O-ring that I've had for my entire life practically, and I'm immediately connected with a an entire history of
Exactly.
battles. You know, this little 3 3/4 inch figurine is like a time machine to me.
Oh yeah.
So there's a nostalgia factor which keeps bringing me back to the O-ring stuff as well.
Yeah.
And the modern era stuff just doesn't have the same resonance, and it never will, because I'm not a child anymore. I don't get to play like I did when I was a child. Maybe it would be entirely different if I had a child of my own and was able to kind of vicariously, like, you know, through play with him or her, hey,
Uh-huh.
girls could be playing with the stuff too,
Oh yeah.
vicariously kind of imbue the modern era stuff with these cool memories.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
That makes
I guess I'm
sense.
still just trying to tell you why I'm a vintage guy over a modern era
But like, see,
guy.
this is my thing, right? I Since I collect both because you can't get the variety in vehicles outside of maybe Rise
Hmm.
of Cobra, the variety in vehicles doesn't exist in the modern era. You have
Yeah,
to go back and
sure.
get some of the classic vehicles in order to like round out what you have. I mean, I'm fortunate enough that in my area when I started back when Rise of Cobra came out, and there were tons of Rise of Cobra stuff all over the place. It was selling, and then they would replenish. Like the Walmart near where I live always had stuff, so I found everything that I wanted from that line within like a couple months of the movie coming out. Normally, that's really difficult. It's like Hasbro was in a different place back then. They were like, let's just force feed this to everybody, whether they want it or not, and we'll see what happens. And there's still vehicles that I got from Rise of Cobra that were kind of meh, and then I went back and I got the original one, and I see the things that they changed. But the overall point that I'm getting at is just that you have to get vintage vehicles for your collection if you want to have variety in what you're collecting. If you want to have variety in your motor pool, variety in your air force, variety in your naval force, you need to have some vintage and some modern, or just go all vintage because you can just there everything exists. And I remember you saying one time that the some figures don't look cool next to certain vehicles, and I agree. There are certain there.
You preempt me. That is exactly what I was going to talk about now.
Oh,
But
cool,
please
cool.
continue.
Well, like there's some vehicles like what is it? The Desert Fox. I've never liked that. I think that's what it's called, the Desert Fox. It's a six
Yeah.
wheeled Jeep. I was never a fan of the design anyway. It just looked plain. Most of the Battle Force 2000 stuff is like that. It's for me. It's also
Mhm.
plain, And so when I put it next to a modern era, figure, it kind of looks like a cosplay vehicle or something. You know what I mean? Like a cheap special effects something or other. I know some people like it, but it reminds me of those. Like, have you ever seen the movie Megaforce 2000? It's a really
I
bad.
keep meaning to, man.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, look, I've been, it's been suggested to me a number of times. I need to track it down.
Yeah, man. It's the cheese that I'm talking about. That some of these vehicles kind of inspire memories of, because I was big into B movies growing up, so I watched all that kind of
Yeah, with a
stuff.
name like Megaforce, I mean, come on. Megaforce.
Oh my god! And the
Jeez.
movie does not disappoint in the cheese factor. It's so bad, but there's a lot of vehicles that just have crap. It's after Mad Max, so everybody wanted a piece of that kind of action. So all the design is just hammer all kinds of crap onto a cheap, chassis of a vehicle. And the vehicles just look ridiculous. And there's some Joe vehicles and some Cobra vehicles that we have to admit they don't have the same oomph that like some of the more memorable ones do. But there also are some vehicles that we don't hear people talk about much in the community. Like you love the X-wing, and I
Oh,
think
the Sky Storm.
yeah,
Yeah.
that thing is dope. I was like, it isn't it called? It's called the X-wing, the Sky Storm X-wing chopper, right? Something like
Very
that.
good. Yep, that is exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah, no one talks about it, and I always thought it was cool. I'm like, it's kind of like Airwolf. Come on, guys, everybody watched Airwolf. What's going on? No one talks about it. It's only
Mm.
the Sky Striker, the Fang, the Awe Striker, like the same vehicles. And I'm like, there's a lot out there. I think maybe it's just that a lot of people haven't been exposed to all of it. So they grab onto the spot that they grab onto, and then that's it. But let's continue on this vehicle thing. I want to hear what you were going to say. My bad.
Well, no, not your bad at all, man. Great talking points in there. We'll hopefully unpack some of them. But yeah, look, vehicles are the crux of the matter for me, and this is a problem that it speaks to my personality, perhaps, that I am almost obsessive compulsive about not mixing. So I've created these distinct walls. It's serious, man. Like, I cannot put a modern era figure on a vintage vehicle. There's just a feel that is problematic to me.
Yeah.
The vehicles that I find do work with the modern era figures that aren't specifically geared toward modern era figures are the direct to consumer vehicles and the new sculpt era vehicles. For instance, like, I display my modern era guys manning the Rhino, which Hasbro, even by their own admission, like, re-released with modern era guys.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, they put out the green, the sort of the blue Rhino with the green missiles. Well, I've got the older one, the black one with the yellow missiles.
Yeah.
I've also got, in complement to that, is the Rolling Operations Command Center.
I'm still trying to get one of those.
Fantastic vehicle.
I love that thing. I want one.
It's a goodie, but I believe it is the demand is high. I just, fortunately, I never stopped collecting. So when DTC was all the rage, I got one of everything.
Yeah.
It is wonderful, and it is a vehicle that doesn't look right when it's manned by vintage figures.
You think so?
It's funny like that.
What if you had?
I think so.
What if you
Dude,
used?
my walls go both ways. It keeps vintage era figures out of vehicles that would otherwise accommodate them.
Huh.
I cannot. It's got to do with the plastic quality, like the Rock and the Rhino and the Desert Attack Chopper or the Night Attack Chopper or the Crimson Attack Chopper, whichever version you gravitate towards. The plastic has a glossier feel.
Yeah.
Whereas the vintage plastic was that very brittle, hard. I mean, it was fantastic for creating really sharp sculpt details, but equally, more easily broken than the sort of more forgiving later plastic that was used.
That's true.
So yeah, I look back over my shoulder and I'm like, these are the vehicles that make sense to me as modern era vehicles. It also doesn't hurt that they have a different design aesthetic.
Yeah.
Like the Rock and the Rhino, yeah, I suppose there's an alien resonance, but there's also like I don't know, kind of a futuristic.
Yeah. Like a Halo
feel.
vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Precisely that. It's very informed by, I suppose, video game designs, stuff like that. Whereas vintage GI Joe was very informed by real vehicles.
Exactly. Because there was no video game concept art back then for these kind of things. There was just the concept art for military concept vehicles, because 95% of the early Joe vehicles were based on concept vehicles, stuff that either was going to exist or did exist and it was a one-off and it never went anywhere. So yeah, I could see that.
So which vintage vehicles do not look good with modern era guys hanging off of them?
Let's see.
Play devil's advocate for me.
Let's see. The RVP looks terrible with modern guys. The Desert Fox looks terrible. The battle.
Oh, that's a pity. Vintage guys slouch way too low in the seat. I can only imagine like a, modern era figure with sort of a slightly taller upper body.
That's true.
Would be able to look over the dashboard.
He probably would work, but like. It's just, detail-wise, you have this super detailed figure. I mean, I guess it would depend on the figure. If you had 25th guys, maybe they would look okay. But I mean, when you get past 25th, your Rise of Cobra, your, Resolute, your Pursuit of Cobra, your 30th and your 50th, maybe not. But Yeah, if it's
Paul customized a Desert Fox for me, gave it a
uh
very cool, detailed paint job,
huh.
and not a technical paint job, more like a weathering,
Yeah.
broken down, that kind of detail.
I hear he's a
And
master at that.
I think the vehicle, because of its sort of smooth, clean lines, lends itself to a really spiffy paint job that can kind of mess up the lines a bit. Put a
Exactly.
little bit of rust and weathering and scoring in places. And with that kind of detailing, yeah, man, I think it does start to shine
Yeah.
for your modern era stuff.
I could see that. I could see that. Maybe that's
So
the thing.
bad example, Strident.
Hey, I can go. I can
No,
keep
I'm kidding.
going. I got more like the Recon sled. I've never liked that vehicle that much as it is, but it looks weird with a modern era dude looking down at the floor, laying down in this thing. It just doesn't look right. Um, I'm
What would you
sure.
say?
Uh huh.
What would you say to something like the Warthog, which
Oh,
I
that thing's
think
awesome.
everyone who's a fan of GI Joe, is a fan of the Warthog.
Oh
It's one
yeah.
of those vehicles that just can do no wrong. Sort of latter '80s vehicle
Oh yeah.
that could mesh very well with the sort of the original Green Team.
That one works even with the core.
But
Like it you can fit a bunch of guys in there. It's land. It's aquatic. It's a lot of firepower. Because it's got some decent sized missiles and you've got some guns. I think it's a cool looking vehicle, and it almost it's just enough detail and just plain enough that it could work for your. You might even be able to throw, and this might be pushing it, but you might be able to throw your some elite forces, those BBI elite force figures. Even though I think they're some of the worst
okay.
figures out there, because every one I've ever bought broke like out of the package as I'm popping them out of the blister. Head pops off, arm pops off. I'm like, what is it with these guys? Especially for the price.
Damn.
But they might even look good in that because it looks like a real world. I mean, it is based on a real world APC, so I think it could work.
My concern is always with the increased scaling of
Hmm.
modern era figures. Like if you start putting your heavies on there, like Leatherneck, Gung Ho, Roadblock,
Hmm.
it's gonna start making the vehicle look diminutive. It's gonna start making it look like a kiddie cart.
Well, it
That's
depends.
always been my fear, I guess.
It depends because the scale on this vehicle was huge, even for the modern. I mean, the vintage era figures. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
I didn't realize how big it was because for a long time I had never seen it with vehicles in it. I'd only seen it on eBay with pictures, and I'd seen pictures of it online and I'd never seen it in person. And then, at one of the conventions we were at, well after I it's got the fire trucks running out.
Oh, I thought it was the cops after you, dude. Come on, man.
Nah, I
You
live
gotta stop holding up Toys R Us.
nah, man.
They're bankrupt as it is.
No, I live an old man's life, man. I keep things real calm and simple. I'm like Giles said. I go home and I'm a family man. That's it. Um, but yeah, I had never seen it next to actual Joe's, and then when I finally did see it next to actual Joe's, I was like, "Wow, this thing is huge." Like it looks stubby and it looks short and blocky, but yeah, you can fit some big guys in there. I mean, like I've seen people sell it with that custom. There's a custom conversion kit for the uh, the very first wave retaliation roadblock to turn him into Sergeant Slaughter. I actually did it, and I'm gonna
What?
review that. Have you ever seen it?
Oh,
Really?
cool.
I'll turn on
Wow.
my camera and I'll show you. Sorry guys, I'll put in a picture in the in the video so you or in this podcast so you guys can see it. But give me a second. I'm gonna grab it real quick. It's real cool looking, and it gives him the
Wow.
right size. And he even comes with a duffel bag. I was like, wow.
Yeah, man.
So he
So
looks
I imagine it's trying to emulate his appearance in Marvel Comics.
exactly
Doesn't he
like
have a duffel bag?
he had a duffel bag
Sweet.
even in the animation. in the movie. Remember when you first? Well, he was holding what's his name? Falcon's duffel bag. Remember
Man,
that
my
very
video
first shot?
quality is really scrubby, but that looks terrific. Gee whiz.
You want me to move closer?
Ah, no, there's no way around it. I think everyone's using the internet at the moment.
Yeah, but yeah, man, it's
Poor overworked.
it's good though, man. It's really good. I mean, and he's got the height and he's got the the shape to look more like what we think of if you've seen Sergeant Slaughter in GI Joe animation. So yeah, him standing next to Roadblock and standing next to Repeater and Leatherneck in that, and I've actually seen it sold with this conversion kit, kitted up Sergeant Slaughter. He still looks fine, and the scale doesn't feel off. And I know there's people who will nitpick because maybe they've been inside a real one, but I mean, it at the end of the day, it is a toy. So some of the nitpicks are just nitpicks. You know what I mean? Like there's a point where you have to be like, you have to suspend your disbelief because you're gonna play with this thing. It's not like you're going to. It's gonna really go into battle on its own. You know what I mean? And you need maximum
Mm,
efficiency for, this vehicle to perform in the battlefield. It's more like
sure.
it needs to emulate what it needs to emulate. That's kind of why, I've done in the video I did about what I would change if I was in charge of the Joe line. I hate the fact that there's so many armored personnel carriers that don't really fit that many guys. Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
They should at least fit maybe half of the amount that they really would fit, if you could. If it fits 50, 25 might be pushing it, but can you get it close? You know what I mean? There's Chap May vehicles that do it, and the old APC fit a ton of Joes in it. So,
Sure.
it always made me
Oh yeah,
wonder.
it was a carry case.
Yep.
Though if there are critics of the Warthog being cramped, I don't think they're people that have actually been in an armored fighting vehicle because, let's face it, even if it is for personnel,
Yeah.
it's hella
Oh,
cramped.
yeah.
I mean,
That
absolutely. You're in there,
That's
shoulder
everything.
to shoulder, knees to knees.
Yep. That's everything, military grade as far as vehicles go. I mean, from your aircraft carriers to subs to jeeps to Humvees to whatever, they're
Mm,
built. Form follows function, and that's it. It's not about the comfort. There's no comfort, no bucket seats in these Humvees. No, you know what I mean? Like it's 100% functionality. There's pockets. I mean, packs everywhere for ammunition for medical kits and all kinds of stuff. It's not about you being comfortable. It's about you getting from point A to point B in the best condition that you can get there in. Um,
mm.
but
And in that vein, modern era figures work even better in something like the Warthog because they're that much more cramped.
yeah, that's true.
Fair point. I take it back. The Warthog does work.
Yeah.
It does not look diminutive as a result. Yeah, man. Okay. Tick that box.
But yeah, I don't know. There's some Destro, man, the Demon, all those Iron Grenadier vehicles. Well, the AGP not so much. That looks cool with modern Iron Grenadiers in it, but the Demon looks weird with modern guys, especially if they're visible, like hanging off of it or standing up on the pegs. I mean, even though they can't really stand on the pegs, but I mean, standing outside on the outside of the vehicle, they look weird. I don't know because the design just looks like a hot mess. I don't know. I never understood that one. And the general's another one. The guy I bought the Defiant from was trying to sell me a complete general, and I was like, yeah, I'm not a fan of the general. And he's like, dude, I'm gonna sell it to you for like, a ridiculous price. He was trying to sell it for
Oh,
pretty cheap, and I was kind of like, I kind of want to do it, but at the same time, I know I'm not going to even play with it because it just looks like an elevator on wheels or or a stage,
come on,
you
man.
know,
Do it, review it,
and
and
then
then
sell it.
send it on to Africa, and I will roll it through the desert.
That'd be
and
awesome, actually.
and the audience will applaud loudly as they see
That's true.
the general in the
In it,
only environment that can
that
support a vehicle of that
exactly,
width.
exactly. Yeah, it just seemed weird and cumbersome, and it doesn't feel like something that would survive in battle. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it seems like
It's
it
been requested. It's been
really.
requested. So
Yeah.
I suggest you revisit that seller, man. Come on. The internet needs a review of the general,
Yeah,
a
a
good one.
good one. Yeah,
I
there's a lot of
think
them
there
out
are
there.
some. Mm,
Yeah,
but we won't pass judgments on our fellow YouTubers.
yeah.
We're just gonna do our own. Come on, Strydent.
That's the nice way of putting it. Hey, there's a certain level.
I'll
There is a certain
I'll pay
level.
you I'll pay you what you paid for it. So it can be
Yeah.
like, third hand and you're not out of pocket.
Hey, I'll see if I can get in touch with them, man. Um, I'll see it. Yeah, it's been a while. I
Cool.
mean, I bought the Defiant what 2 years ago, something like that. So I'll
As
see.
much as that. Oh, jeez, then it's gone, man. I'm sure
Yeah,
it's gone.
it's possible.
Damn.
It's possible. He comes into. I mean, dude had 5 Defiants. He just buy. I think
What?
he's one of those collect because he said he was trying to customize it for some type of Transformers something or other. I was like, the Defiant
Mm.
of all the things you could customize for Transformers, like that's like sacrilege. Like the Defiant
It's
is like,
been done, but I don't know if I can get behind that.
yeah, me neither.
Maybe if
It's
there's something materially wrong with it, like it's seen a lot of sun damage, so
yeah,
putting on a custom paint job couldn't hurt it.
exactly.
Or yeah, no, if there's something wrong with it, cool. But like a fair to good condition Defiant,
Oh yeah,
don't
yeah,
touch that thing, man. It's toy
exactly,
history.
exactly. It's weird because I told people I said it in the video. That was a vehicle I remember my brother and I looking at like the service merchandise catalog or the Toys R Us catalog, one of them, and we're like talking about what we want to do when we finally get it, if we ever get it. We're like, oh, this Christmas we won't ask for anything. Neither of us will ask for anything except for that. So
Oh
that, so
man,
we
I take it
completely
it didn't work. Oh, you're
no,
breaking my heart.
yeah, it didn't work. But eventually I got it. Patience pays off. It takes a while. You got to develop the patience, but it does pay off, especially when you're collecting. Um,
Well, I had sworn off all possibility of ever getting it. It was just too big, too cumbersome, too fragile to ever get into this country. And oh, good opportunity to say this. I'll probably mention it in one of the more sort of, I suppose, formal GI Joburg podcast releases. But I didn't mention in our 100th episode that the man responsible for putting the insurance claim together on our damaged Defiant, and the guy who agreed, crazy guy who agreed to ship it to me in the first place, should not go unnamed. His name is Ronald Hoff, and he is a frickin' legend. GI Joburg salutes this man.
Shoot, I salute you
He
too,
got us
sir.
our Defiant,
Yeah,
and through his persistence with the Netherlands post office, we basically got it for free.
that's awesome.
Because it arrived damaged. Uh, we managed to mount a successful insurance claim, and yeah, as I say, thanks to Ronald's persistence, we won
Yeah,
big time.
I know, and
So
that's
thank you, Ronald.
a huge get. So yeah, yeah. Thank
Mm,
you, Ronald.
yeah.
It's awesome to see. It's always awesome when you see the community kind of come together, or people in the community come together and help each other. Because I always say, and I got to a point with this community thing where I get annoyed at that phrase, because there are pockets where people actually, it's like an extension of our childhood. When we were kids, if you were on the playground and you had a GI Joe and I had a GI Joe, we're friends because we're going to be playing GI Joe at recess or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's just as simple as it was. Or any toys, usually. If you had He-Man and I had He-Man stuff, we're going to play because we both love He-Man. You know what I mean? Or whatever. But like,
Mm.
you see in the communities a lot of times it's like this dick measuring contest, and it doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel as genuine as it once did. And we're older now, so we should know better. We should be able to just reminisce and kind of vibe on this thing that we love, and not spend so much time like I have 50 Marvel Legends Deadpools and you have none. You know what I mean? Or I have You know, oh, I have the Defiant, I have 2 Defiants and 3 Terradromes, and you don't even have any. And like it usually comes up in conversation like that, and that always gets on my nerves because it's like you don't have to be like that. You know, you can either point me in the direction of one, you know, or something, or hold back what you want to say and post the picture some other time, not at the moment that someone is lamenting over missing out on something, or you know what I mean, or a broken, like when you talked about the gantry doors breaking, you had a lot of people who sympathized, but then you had a lot of people like, look, mine is pristine, and I'm like, come on, like why? You don't need to do that. That's so unnecessary. But
Yeah, jeez,
but
sobbing emoticon right there.
man, my like I felt that in my
Rub it in my
chest.
face, asshole.
I felt that in my chest when I saw your video and you talked about it as you're taking it out, and I see it come out in a chunk. I'm like, oh my god, like you know, like the terrible
We
acting.
downplayed it big time. We
Like,
downplayed it big time so that we didn't put a sort of negative spin on the video.
nah,
But inside, I was dying.
I bet.
It was going to basically terminate my collecting completely.
Really?
You know, I was like, what's the point? You know, like it is so prohibitive. Essentially, thanks to postage, you're buying everything twice.
Yeah, I know.
And that's for the lowest rung of postage, where you know half the time the item is on a conveyor belt and being like sort of lifted and dropped without any regard to like
Yeah,
fragile stickers or this way
it's true.
at 10 times the cost,
Yeah,
personally couriered to you. There's still no guarantee. So
yeah.
I just threw my hands up and I was like, I'm done. I'm out. Forget it. Forget it.
Well, I'm glad.
Any toys I buy in future will be bought brick and mortar style in the flesh, because
Yeah,
this just sucks.
I'm glad that didn't
Which
happen.
basically means like the only toys I'd ever buy are toys that I buy when I am overseas,
Yeah,
because yeah, we get shit all down here.
but you got your tomahawk and stuff down there, right?
Wow, you really do your homework, man. Okay, the tomahawk. I found, for those of you guys who are hearing this for the first time, all 5 of you, because I tell this story often, I found a mint in sealed box tomahawk, like in 2010, in this dusty old toy shop in Cape Town.
It's insanity.
And it's rare enough to happen anywhere in the world, the States included.
Yeah,
But for that to happen here, I mean, just to put things in perspective, the tomahawk wasn't released here.
yeah,
No one had it. It didn't go on sale here at all. So this must have been stock that was in a distributor's warehouse as like a sort of I suppose a tester or a sample
yeah.
that they brought in to show the execs, like, will we order this item? And they were like, nah, too big, it won't sell, blah, blah, blah. So this is a one-of-a-kind sealed tomahawk. And I'm like, what were the chances that it found its way onto a shelf and right in front of the nose of a guy who absolutely treasures this stuff? I mean,
Yeah.
it's no secret that the tomahawk is my favorite GI Joe vehicle of all time.
Really, of all time,
Of
even
all time.
even over the
Cannot be beat.
even over the Defiant. Uh
Or you can adapt to pretty much every operation that GI Joe is on.
What about like
You know, you can have tomahawks buzzing around the Defiant as just kind of
that'd be awesome? Yeah,
patrol aircraft. I mean,
that'd
like,
be awesome.
but it doesn't work the other way around. You know, you can't have the Defiant kind of assist your guys when they're I don't know, moving in on a target location. It's like,
They can
yeah,
if they
no, that
do.
thing's just gonna stay in orbit and just
No. It
do its thing in
depends.
space.
What is it? What do they call that? The orbital drop. You know how they slingshot from one side of the globe to the
Oh,
next, and then drop the person. You know, at ridiculous. It's like low orbit, but they drop the person from. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's a
that is why GI Joe needs targets, like on the Joe side. Like, what? It just occurred to me, man. Like, Destro's got these guys who they drop from low orbit,
Uh huh.
but he doesn't have a ship.
Yeah. Well, you
GI Joe
have.
has GI Joe has a spacecraft,
That's
but
true.
they don't have any guys that they can
Yeah, they
throw out of
do.
the
They
airlock door.
they have
Come
they
on.
have skydive, and you could have a
They
whole.
just don't have enough
You
heavy gear. I mean, like,
He's pretty
the
heavy.
modern era skydive. You
Yeah,
mean
modern era skydive. He's based on that. The
the
Rise of
boxes?
Cobra. There was a prototype they did, Rise of Cobra Ripcord, where he had the gear with the wings and the thrusters and the big pressurized helmet and the essentially he looked like a Halo jumper on steroids with a back with like a jetpack with wings, and that was the whole point. It's kind of
Well,
like
similar to skydive, right?
yeah, it was exactly Skydive, just different colors and
Okay.
Ripcord's head. I'm still
Okay.
trying to. That's one of the ones I'm trying to get. I still have Skydive. I have two of them so that I could put Ripcord's head on one of those bodies, And
Good idea.
but
I
yeah,
have a glut of Rise of Cobra Dukes,
uh
so I put Channing Tatum's head on that body. Don't judge. I just needed to give it some character because the balaclava head, if you can get away from that,
yeah.
yeah, that's always necessary because that just, yeah, man, who is Skydive? He's a guy. He's another guy in a balaclava. It's like,
Yeah.
come on, give him a face.
Well, I feel
And
like
since Channing Tatum will never be Duke for me,
yeah,
he can be Skydive.
that makes sense actually. Yeah, I made Channing Tatum almost all of my green shirts. So like every every bit of my infantry or my basic soldiers are just Channing Tatum. Like I think Mouse is one of them. Channing Tatum is one of them. The secondary head from the Retaliation Joe Trooper, that's another one.
Yeah.
Um, but
Okay. I
yeah,
hope you switched it up a little bit, like take a little felt tip pen and that
yeah,
pencil
put
in
a
a little
beard.
mustache
Yeah, yeah,
or a little
I did
goatee, a little
that.
soul patch. Like,
Yep, I did.
oh, it's Channing Tatum with
Yep,
with some sideburns.
that's exactly what I did. I even repainted some of the hair in some cases. And yeah, um,
Well, that's something that I find modern era construction lends itself to more than the O-ring stuff
yeah, customs.
because
They're easy.
because the bodies can often be blank slates.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas well, look, we've all done it because the O-ring construction lends itself to customizing so easily. Just unscrew the back and pop him apart,
Yeah.
easy. So we've all mixed and matched parts, but I don't know, man.
It
I don't want to cast aspersions on like a whole section of the community here, but like customizing with O-ringers, I, I mean, do you buy
vintage.
it? I don't know.
The vintage ones, not so much, but the modern, the new
Yeah.
sculpt era ones, I think you can make some dope customs with them because
Okay.
the gear is all there. It's just you have to find the right ones. You oftentimes you're gonna have to repaint something, but the gear that's the important thing, and I think that's why the modern era ones kind of eclipse the vintage figures when it comes to customizing is because most of them start with BDUs and then you just build up from there. And like
Yeah,
the
web gear is so important. Like
exactly,
removable sort of rubber goods. Yeah, yeah. Customizing with old school guys.
it can work.
Look, it has its place. It
Yeah.
definitely does. I saw some cool like freaky wrestler dudes, just like shirtless guys using Roadblock's body. I know, not Roadblock. Road Pig's
Road pig,
body.
yeah.
Like Mindbender's head and Crystal Ball's head not Balrog, the Cobra boxer,
Oh, big boa.
Big Boa, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the guy repainted Crystal Ball's head with like a Joker face. I was like, that's
What?
brilliant.
Yeah, that is
That is
awesome.
absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes some
So it does
skill.
have its place,
Yeah.
but it's very niche.
Yeah.
It's or niche, as you fine folks would say. Do you say niche? Do you say
Yeah,
niche?
I say niche.
Ah, America.
It's one of the few things that like I was kind of my grandmother is a school teacher. She's from my family half is from British Guyana, the other half is from Brazil. So my grandmother taught us the Queen's English, which is why we don't have strong Jersey or New York accents. I grew up in Brooklyn, and I don't have the accent like thick like you see on television. Most people don't. that's kind of a television thing, but it's not bad, you know. But if I get into a conversation with someone from New York with the accent, slowly it starts slipping out, you know, water and talking and your father and your mother, and it sounds,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? I'll catch myself because she drilled it into us, like, no, that's not how you pronounce it. It's pronounced like this. You pronounce all the letters. Um, so yeah, there's some things and there's some phrases and some words, you know, that have like the alternate pronunciation depending on where you're from in the world, you know, that we learned it that way, but over time it, you know, you just kind of default to the thing you hear more often. So yeah, niche is one of those words. And what's another one? A homage.
Aluminum.
Oh yeah,
Ah,
aluminum. Yeah,
homage.
yeah, homage. We don't say homage like a lot of people do. It's a homage or homage. Same thing with yeah,
Mm.
aluminum is one. My friend Matt, he's he lives in the UK and he always cracks us up with the aluminium. And I'm like, where are you getting all this? Where are you getting all these extra letters and stuff from, man? Like, but it's just one of those
I must
things, you know.
say.
But yeah, it's fun. I love that stuff though. I love the differences, you know. This is one of the reasons why.
Nuances.
Yes, the nuances, exactly. Like this is why it's so awesome meeting folks in this, you know, that do this thing we do and sharing your stories and then hearing that something you thought you were doing and you were so like, you know, original is the something that someone else had the exact same idea on the complete opposite end of the world. You know what I mean? And it's like, how did you have this idea that I had? You know what I mean? You think you're exclusive, and it's like, damn. So we all are thinking, you know, in the same vein with these particular things, you know, which is it's awesome to me, and I wish I like when that happens, and I wish more of it happened. You know, that's why I'm always up for,
Or you
you know.
find your soulmate like that, man. It's like, what? You thought Storm Shadow was gonna betray Cobra too? Oh, we need to be together. It's. I mean, yeah. To hell with any kind of dating app or anything, like, or funny questions to find your true match. Like, it just has to come down to, did you play with GI Joe the way I play with GI Joe? Yeah, when it's that easy. We need more girls in this hobby. That's
Yeah,
what we
yeah,
need
it's
to
weird. There's been a
calm the
handful.
waters.
Yeah, there's been a handful, and when I go to conventions, I meet handfuls of like couples where both of them collected, you know, but it's rarely it's rare it's very rare that like on any of these sites it's just a bunch of girls specifically that, you know, got into it as hardcore as we did. I know girls who played with Joes because their brothers had them, but they didn't get into it like us. I know a lot of girls who played with the 12-inch Joes because they were superior to Ken. So they always got those guys, tried to dress them up in regular clothes to be,
The,
you
the
know,
the stereotypes unfortunately sometimes ring true. Like,
yeah.
why does my niece love dolls so much? Because she can remove and replace the clothing ad infinitum. Like, that is the play pattern that she just repeats over and over again. It's like, we got to get undressed to go to bed. We got to get dressed to go to school. We got to get
Uh-huh.
undressed to go to bed. Like, what do we actually play out what happens at school? No, we just seem to be like constantly undressing and getting dressed again. Okay.
I know, whatever works, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But
Well, yeah, no. I hate to generalize and come off sounding like some kind of chauvinist.
no, no, no. But I
Maybe I
mean,
am.
this is an
Get
experience.
discharged.
It's something you've seen. You know what I mean?
True,
you're not
true, true.
generalizing because you know we know
Public
better.
forum, man. We're being judged on everything we say. My goodness.
I know, right? But
So, what is the take home, Strident? How do we harmonize our split
I
uh, hobby, our split community?
I think there just
I
shouldn't.
mean, we can all agree GI Joe is the greatest toy line ever created,
Yeah.
but it seems like GI Joe is now two distinct toy lines.
Well, I think what has to happen is more people need to just get a feel for everything that's out there. I mean, now you have things like yojo.com, you have 3D Joes, you have His Tank's really cool database, and you can look at all the stuff that's pretty much ever been released. You know, you got Battle Lines, you've got Generals Joes, you've got a lot of databases to check out what's out there. You can even go watch the old commercials. I mean, YouTube's got probably all of them. You can see what's out there, and then like people need to experiment and go out and just like, if you like the look of something, like screw the fact that everybody says the Sky Striker is the greatest plane in the Joe whatever. It's not. Maybe for a bunch of people it is, but it's not. There's like so many other planes that you could experiment and go play with and see how it feels for you, instead of basing your whole take home on what a whole bunch of other people say. Look at how stuff is displayed. If a person buys it, keeps it in the box, and puts it up, and then tells you on a forum, this is the greatest, blah, 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 they don't know what they're talking about. They didn't experience it. GI Joe is a line, it's toys in the best sense. You have to experience them. It's not about what people say. It's what you do with it. Like, it's what I do that defines me. It's one of those. It's
okay, Teddy Holmes.
No, it's what I do. But no, like, it's what you do with them is what's important. Like, you got to see the thing in person, fit a bunch of your favorite Joes on it, and see how it works. Like, I got the Dragonhawk from Sigma 6, and I had wanted the thing for years. There's a video that a fellow Joe collector, goodness, I'm sorry that his name is escaping me right now, but he did this video back when Sigma 6 was on television. And he got that vehicle. He was all the way in the Philippines. And I was friends with him on the old Joe community on Facebook. The video was awesome, and I'm like, I have to have that thing. I finally got it, and then I can't play with it. Like, it's got one cockpit that I can fit a modern guy or even a vintage guy in. And then the other cockpit is for the smaller Sigma 6 figures. And I can't really do anything else with it. There's no room. There's no like handles for the guys to hang on, or for you to put lines so that they could rappel from the thing. The box is tiny, because it's supposed to hold a small Snake Eyes on a motorcycle. So it's one of those things that it would become. I mean, you could use it as a support vehicle, or it becomes a long-term custom project. Where you're trying to make it fit. But the only reason why I know is because I actually went out and got the thing, I right now I've been thinking of using it as something to trade for something else that I might be looking for, But it's one of those things. It's an awesome vehicle. It looks awesome. If I had a whole bunch of smaller figures, it probably would be the bomb. But right now this is sitting there because I can't really do anything with it because I can't fit a lot of my guys in there. And I know this from.
But you've got a good stand-in for that vehicle, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
I seem to recall in one of your videos you showcased this incredible toy, which I'd never seen before. It was like also kind of mech slash
that locust
aircraft
thing, yeah,
helicopter.
You're talking
from
about
True Heroes?
Yeah, it's from True Heroes. They had this line called Laser. It was like land, air, sea, something else. I can't remember, robot or something. It's something cheesy like that, but the vehicle reminded me of that. That's why I got it. And it has lights and sounds. It's got VTOL capabilities, but they're on wings that can splay backwards and move outward to the sides. And then it has these bug legs to clamp vehicles, so it can transport like a trooper transport from point A to point B. And I think there was a transport in that line. I've been trying to get a hold of it, but it's kind of it was very open and there was no armor. So essentially it was just a kill box where you're just sitting there and wait to die if you get to, on your way to...
it's basically for driving from, the headquarters to the landing strip where you take the plane.
Exactly.
Basically, only for use around base.
Exactly.
But that was a fascinating toy, man, and I'd never seen that before. If anyone of our listeners are scratching their heads at this point, check out Strydent's Cobra Motor Pool video from about 2014.
Yeah.
It's a good watch. And it gives you a good sense of what this man's all about in terms of just integrating toys from disparate different lines. But like, if you can think of a cool backstory, there's absolutely no limitation on what you can do.
Exactly. Yeah, that
except
vehicle...
scale.
That's true, scale.
So the Dragonhawk, you can't do much with that. And I think scale was what taught me how to be a toy snob in the first place. Like, I used to only play with Transformers that conceivably held the same scale. So
Really?
I'd need largish Decepticon jets
Uh-huh.
to integrate with small Autobot cars.
What?
It didn't work the other way around. Yeah,
Wow.
man.
Man,
Tragic.
we
Tragic. I threw
we
these walls up left, right, and center. I no longer collect any other scale other than 3 3/4 inch. So
wow.
when Marvel Universe started
Uh-huh.
out, I was in heaven, man. I was able to get a full team of X-Men, Avengers,
Yeah.
X-Force in the GI Joe scale because I wanted Captain America to lead the Joes on a mission, or I I just wanted my world to all be the same size as GI Joe and Star Wars.
Wow.
Fortunately, it became the dominant scale recently.
That's true.
But as I said, it created these divisions, and that's why I cannot have like my modern era, or not sorry, modern era, like my movie toys from Captain America: Civil War integrate with vintage O-ring GI Joes. They don't play well.
What?
What do I do, man?
I'm telling you, one day you just need to throw them all together and just see what happens. Have a Royal
I
Rumble.
think ha- have some offspring.
Yeah, that
I
might
think
work too,
is
but
is
that
that
takes
will
more
that will
time.
dislodge the carrot from my ass. That's like kids don't see that. Oh, this guy has more detailed paint apps, and this guy has a different construction, and this guy is made from different plastic,
Yeah,
and like
exactly. See, for us, and this might be the big thing that might separate some collectors from others. For us, like, so my family wasn't, we were never poor, but we definitely weren't
uh,
rich,
li-
you
sorry, do you
know?
want to start that again, man? I had a little audio drop out
Oh,
there.
sorry. Yeah, we were never rich, but we weren't poor. My parents were like, we would get figures maybe for your birthday and Christmas and maybe for a surprise at some random time, just because. So we didn't ever have, growing up, entire collections of anything. So, we had a little bit of Ninja Turtles, a little bit of Captain Power, a little bit of G.I. Joe, a little bit of Cops. And we had to, if we're going to play, we got to use what we got. You might have a vehicle from freaking Robocop and the Ultra Police, but you might have all the other police guys are your cops figures, which means, the Robocop guys were like a little bit 5 inches or under, just a little bit. And then the
Mm.
cops figures were like a little over 5 inches, almost six. So they were the big buff guys, and they're your police. So you got to pretend that they would drive in that police car from, you know what I mean? From what you call it, because that's what you had. So I didn't develop the walls like you
The
say.
divisions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have, like, with Marvel Select, I see this and it boggles my mind. Marvel Select puts out superior figures to Marvel Legend in a lot of areas other than maybe articulation, and even in some cases they do just as good articulation, but their paint jobs and their sculpts blow the Marvel Legends stuff out the water. Yet the collector community completely shits all over the Marvel Select stuff, and they all go for the very plain, very blah, Marvel Legends things. And I'm just like, and it's all because of the scale. And I just can't limit myself. Like the vehicle that I showed you guys, the Moro dropship for my team, it's a Power Rangers vehicle, which means it's a mech. It's pieces that form a Megazord, but it's like a, I don't know, 5 inches tall and maybe 8 inches wide. Obviously, I can't fit Joe's in there, but like through the power of Photoshop and my imagination, I'm gonna fit people in there. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be where they house all their gear and stuff. And for the sake of little stories that I'll put together, it'll take on that role. So like growing up, we just used our imagination to fill in the blanks for a lot of things. So we're not as hard on what we get as some collectors are. You know what I mean? I think if you were able to get all that stuff, and tailor your collection at an early age to what what you like specifically, then if you continue and you never stopped, and you're still able to continue that, I could see how you would grow up with almost tunnel vision to all the other stuff, because you've always been able to maintain this, that one scale, that one look, the one style across everything. Like, say you only collected Joes and Star Wars. I could totally see how you could shun everything else, because nothing else had that level of compatibility between the vehicles and the figures, So you would only look for things that have that compatibility. I could see how that would happen, but I just think, like, if it works for you and you can continue it like that and it doesn't bother you, continue, do it. It works for you. But if there's things outside of that you want to kind of jump into, and you want to see how this would look if your Joes took on, the AT-AT from, Star Wars, or a Megazord or something, just something out there. Do it, and just see how it works for you. It's all in fun. It's not like somebody, the scale police is gonna knock on your door and be like, "The fuck are you doing?" Cut that out. Like, you're cool. You're completely cool. It's all imagination based, and that's the thing. People need to just give in. Don't be an adult in this area. Because as adults, we have all those walls and all these defining attributes to everything. Everything has to be in its place, and it has to work at this time, and it has to, it has a specific function, and blah blah blah. And it's something that you're taught. You're taught to kind of let go of your kind of childish imagination and childish curiousness, and just be an adult where everything is logic all the time. You can be logical and stuff, but you can also turn that off and or try to, and just enjoy yourself, I mean,
Strident, I wish it were that simple. I mean, looking back, even as a child, I would get my buddies round, and then the first question would be, so what should we play, guys? Should we play GI Joe, Transformers, superheroes, or should we read comics?
Hey, those are good questions to ask.
Was always the last pick on the list. I mean, no one really wanted to come over and just read. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
So we would. I guess I am to blame. I imposed these divisions.
Yeah.
And we never had a situation where we had the GI Joes team up with the Transformers. It was like one or the other. Wow. And I still haven't been able to let that go. And I guess that's why I am so OCD about these divisions now. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't help the fact that it's a resource scarce situation.
Yeah.
I can't just go out and buy a trolley full of like varied toys. It has to be a very calculated move to price something online, find a seller willing to ship out here, work up a shipping quote, and then bite down hard on something while I fire it off from my credit card across the ether. So these divisions have only become stronger. Hopefully that's gone some way to explain why I am such a purist, and why I view these things as so black and white, night and day, vintage, modern era. But that's not to be prescriptive, and certainly does not speak for the rest of the GI Joburg team. Paul is a hot mess of scales, of styles, of manufacturers.
Yeah.
He's got equal parts sort of Japanese toys to American toys. And yeah, he regularly mixes up modern era with vintage, with what is it? Not true. Power Team Elite.
Yeah.
All of that stuff. No holds barred, man. So please don't let me be a Scrooge and ruin anyone's fun. But this is, I suppose, my way of explaining who I am and why I collect a certain way. And I hope I haven't ruffled anyone's tail feathers by saying inflammatory things like, yeah, I don't want no modern era toys on my vintage vehicles.
Yeah,
but
I remember
you're
when
in
you
the
said
company
that.
of friends. Strident is an avid fan and supporter of notions of mixing this stuff up. So, bam.
Yeah.
Bam.
I mean, it's all in fun.
Pick your poison.
True. Okay. So let me ask you this then. What do you think about some of the vehicles from the modern era in comparison to some of the ones in the the vintage era, like the Rhino that you brought up. I love that vehicle. It's one of my favorites ever in the entire line, just because of the three obvious functions. It just seems like a almost an all-purpose attack vehicle. You know what I mean? Like, it's not very limited. And it was the first vehicle I got when I started collecting Rise of Cobra, so I was able to. And it was a calculated effort too, because I wanted to have a place to put all my guys. So at the time, I had about 6 or 7. I had the main cast of the movie, and I was able to fit everybody plus Metalhead, or Cannonball, I think that's what he's called, who's driving the thing. And I was completely happy, because I'm like, wow, it's an APC, it's a helicopter, and it's a freaking armored, like Batmobile type deal. So, I have no problem. I had no problems with it. I mean, different configurations with the weapons. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about it in comparison to vintage figures?
Well, it definitely has a different look and feel to vintage toys, which immediately casts it for me as a modern era compatible vehicle. The fact that the cockpit on the helicopter is spacious.
Yeah.
I mean, you could put old Wild Bill in there. And Wild Bill is a rather tall 25th anniversary figure.
Oh, yeah.
He's not going to work in a Dragonfly. Although I've seen some people manage to kind of shoehorn him in there.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a comfortable fit. The vintage Dragonfly is rather unforgiving, even for vintage figures.
Yep.
So that chopper is excellent. It is a fantastic chopper. In fact, I think I used to use it as like Batman's stealth chopper. Like I imagined that somehow was something that Batman would have acquired. No need to paint it black; it already is, and it has a kind of a Batman aesthetic with that very like stealth fighter canopy.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I have no trouble casting that as a modern era vehicle, and it perfectly ties into Rise of Cobra with the sort of the black body armor look that film gave us.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd say, yeah, absolutely, that is the era that it makes the most sense with. So you were bang on the money there. Not so sure about Cannonball.
I know
he's sort of light gray pants and yellow highlights.
Yeah, I think the version I have is the green and with the leather jacket. And he's got like
of course, he's a modern era figure. I was thinking of the DTC one that we got.
Yeah, I got that.
Man, I have an embarrassing story about the bloody Rise of the Rhino.
What happened?
I totally did not realize that it had a Springfire missile launcher.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah, the one that fires the single missile. So when I got the missile, just sort of like loose, I found it in my room somewhere, and I was like, this missile must belong to some miscellaneous toy that I don't own anymore. I threw it out. What an idiot. I actually threw it in the trash.
No. You're supposed to throw it in your box of shit, or the box of random shit,
I don't know what went through my head at that point. I was like, some kids have been here, they'd left their missile behind, or something like that. I was like, I had this moment of madness. That's the only way I can explain it. I literally lost my mind for 5 minutes and threw out this missile.
Wow.
What a prize idiot. So yeah, my Rhino is now incomplete, sadly.
Yeah.
And,
but you can find
they
that
are
missile.
in short supply these days.
You can find that missile easily.
So if anyone has a original yellow DTC Rhino missile that they just happen to have spare, send it my way.
Yeah, you should. You that will be easy to find. I'm sure it won't be one of those parts like when I'm looking for Defiant stuff, where each part costs like $50. I'm like, come on, guys, that's not even fair. You could find that missile.
Oh, but come on, man! This vehicle saw such a limited run anyway. I'm talking about the direct-to-consumer version.
Yeah,
the yellow
black and yellow
missiles.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, dude. I think I'm up shit creek because it's not likely that someone just found a loose missile, and they're like, "Oh, I don't have the vehicle anymore.
In
Here,
if
South Africa, you have it."
well, a lot of the lots have pieces and missiles and stuff from so many different vehicles that I'm pretty sure I've seen it, but the missile by itself in a lot with other stuff. That didn't make any sense by itself with other stuff. I've seen it in lots, on eBay with tons of other
Well, let a
parts.
brother know.
So yeah, I'll definitely
Hit me
point
up,
that. Yeah,
dude.
I'll let you know if I see it next. But yeah, that helicopter. So the helicopter is actually based on an actual one, and it's a good looking.
What?
Yeah, the Comanche.
Cool.
The
Oh,
Comanche.
yes, yes,
A
yes.
what is it?
With all that
The
sort of angular stealth
uh-huh.
design. Mm.
Exactly. And it's just that when I realized that it was a real, helicopter, I was like, wow. I mean, I remember my son and I, both sons actually, and I were just because it took a while. I never bothered to look up the real world counterparts for a lot of these like modern era stuff, just because it doesn't really change how I'm gonna play with it. You know what I mean? But we went on YouTube and we were seeing maneuvers for with this particular helicopter, and I'm just like, man, this thing's fast. Like you get an idea for exactly what you should be able to do with such a thing. Um, yeah, I love the Rhino. It's really slick. Now there are definite ones that I will say miss the mark, even though on the surface they look almost dead on to their real world counterparts, like the Banshee, the Crimson Banshee, which is also it was called the Sky. Shoot, what were they called? It was in the Sky Patrol. It's like it's a stealth bomber. You know what I'm talking about with the little pod
Oh,
underneath. Um,
jeez.
let me. I'll
You're
tell
not
you.
talking about the Sky Raven, are you?
No, 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 no. It's smaller. It's an
Okay.
older stealth bomber, and there's a red one. There's a silver Sky Patrol version. There's a
Oh, we're talking about the Firebats that's been
nope,
repurposed,
not the
sort of
Firebat,
a blue.
not the Firebat. The Firebats they called those. They re-released those in uh the Rise of Cobra line, and they were called. God, what were they called? It was like Sky something or other. I hate when I
Yeah, and that they sort of added to it in kind of Ghibli ways, and
yeah.
not to step on the toes of anyone who is a fan. I think that was a misstep. To recast something as GI Joe and sort of add boxy things to it. It's like,
Yeah, there's like
break up
intakes.
those cool lines.
Yeah, they added those weird air intakes to it. Yeah, it looks good. It
Mm.
looks like a lot. Like this thing must be really freaking fast, and it must be for very specific operations, and that's it. But I'm gonna find it and tell you the name real quick. I'm actually on Yojo right now. But it looks like you should be able to fit like it should be a full sized stealth bomber, and it's not. You can only fit two people in it, and that's when I start getting frustrated with them because I'm like, you have this awesome design, and you choose not to use it to its full Sky Sweeper. That was what the Rise of Cobra
Okay.
Firebats were called, and that's what the original release of this stealth bomber was called. It's called the Sky Sweeper. It came out in 2003. Um, it's the Rise of Cobra version is the one that I was telling you about. That's what I have, and that one's called the Crimson Hydra. It's pretty
Oh,
nice, but yeah,
cool.
it's got this weird like fold out wing gimmick with the missiles and stuff, and it only has enough space for a pilot, and it has a pod underneath like a spy pod that fits one other character or whatever, and that's it. And I'm like, this thing should be at least half the size of the shark, the AC-130 that we have for from True Heroes, or even like
Mm.
the wingspan of maybe the Beast, because those things are usually long, wingspan wise, they're pretty damn long. and you should be able to fit at least three, have your two pilots and have like a backup person and maybe have the pod if that's what you want to do. It just feels like a lot of times, for the sake of fitting all the stuff in the box, they shrink down a lot of vehicles that should be larger. Whereas in the vintage line, when you look at, like, for instance, the Night Raven, we could look at the new Night Raven and the old one. The old one, it's huge. They were so generous with, like, the amount of plastic that they use to make that vehicle. And it has plenty of room. It looks like it's proper scale to the figure. I mean, I know it's still a little bit smaller than what it probably should be, but it feels like it's substantial. Whereas the new one feels so
Any
much
bigger
smaller.
than that, you're going to struggle to play with it.
Exactly. And then the new one, they made it small enough that it'd be easy for any kid to play with. It's got the handle and everything. And I like it. It looks like Firefox from the movie Firefox. Remember the Clint Eastwood film?
Can't forget it, man. Jeez.
Yeah, that was an awesome film.
I should say you can't forget the last 25 minutes, 30 minutes of it.
Yeah, exactly.
But the rest, my goodness. Rewatching it as an adult, I was like, what? I rented this as a child. I must have been a very, very patient child, because
you have to really wait.
The good stuff only happens right at the end.
Exactly. But yeah, that's what they went for instead of going for a modernized version of the, SR-71, which they should have, which would have been cool, or Blackbird. I mean, not the SR-71.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the kind of stuff I see with the modern versus vintage, especially when it comes to vehicles. Is just, back in the day, it seemed like they just wanted to impress. Nowadays, it's like, budget, and how much can we fit in there and keep?
But it's been pointed out by a number of different sectors, that the generics, poor man's Joe, whether it's Lennard's offerings or the stuff that True Heroes is putting out, they are able to release substantial vehicles.
Oh yeah. I was playing with my the Beast Bomber earlier today. And because I finally decided I'm going to give it to Cobra and just put a bunch of, like, what do they call them? Crimson Guards and stuff in there. And Shadow Guards.
I don't know, man. Something that looks that kind of low tech. It almost says Dreadnought to me.
Yeah, that
like
could
if there
work.
was a corps of Dreadnought pilots.
Yeah, that could work.
That would be their baby.
That could work. Or the Desert Vipers. Like, that could be their...
okay.
Cause
buy that too.
Yeah, they're already that color and everything. But yeah, I was playing with that thing.
So Hasbro don't release big ticket items anymore. They haven't since the Pit.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I guess, they do invest a lot more than the competition. Beast Bomber, Rainfire.
Oh, I lost
you. On a GI Joe vehicle.
What'd you say?
The Rainfire, the Beast Bomber, those toys are cool, and they're substantial, but they always feel a little bit more hollow, The cockpits aren't detailed. It kind of sells out on a sound and light gimmick.
Yeah,
instead of, like, lots of small accessories or features.
But if we're being fair, when you put it side by side with some of the larger Joe stuff, there are lots of Joe vehicles that are on the large side that don't have a ton of detail on the interior. I mean, that's the imagination part. And on, like, the Beast Bomber, one of the two, I mean, it's still one cockpit, but there's two divisions. The higher one has all the detail on the instrumentation, detail on the cockpit, whereas the secondary one, which would be the gunner seat, because there should be a gun down there. Well, there are 4 guns on the sides.
It could be the Bombardier, man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of an old school role, but since it is a rather old school looking craft, you could have a guy down there with a bomb sight.
Exactly, and
hitting the release button.
That one doesn't have any detail on the inside, so it's one of those things where it's like almost all around it you've got tons of detail. It's just when you get, like you said, on the inside, one of the two spots where you put people doesn't have detail. I could live with that. because look at the thing. It's huge. I mean, it's bigger than all the Joe planes I have. I've had a Sky Striker. It's even bigger than I have the what do they call that? The gunship, the Republic gunship from Star Wars, and because I've always wanted that to use as a Cobra vehicle for the either just a trooper transport or to drop Paravipers from.
Ooh, what does the engine sound like?
And it sounds it sounds huge, you know. It's huge and loud.
Outstanding. I like that.
And I when I put I didn't know how big that thing was until I got it like in hand, and I'm like, holy shit! Like, how does a little kid run around with this, you know? And you know, I'm playing with this, I'm enjoying it, but then when I put it next to the Beast Bomber still kind of dwarfs that thing. You know, it's one of the biggest vehicles I think I have altogether, next to the Defiant. So you know, just that novelty right there, it's pretty awesome because you can fit a lot of stuff in there. You can fit a lot of bombs if you want to. You can fit a lot of your figures in there. It's a good trade-off. You know, it's simple enough that you could repaint it if you wanted to. You know, it wouldn't be hard. You don't have many doors to remove or anything like that. So I think it's worth it. You know, just like the Shark, the AB-115 Shark, the AC-130 from True Heroes. That thing's huge too, and it's got a lot of detail inside and outside. So it easily rivals what we would get from Hasbro, and it didn't even cost a third of what they would have probably charged us if they did that now. Like if they released a bit, I mean, look at some of those convention set vehicles that they did, like the Danger at the Docks, or the night, what was it called? The Night Mission set with Sightline and the Sky Striker painted with Python Patrol or Cobra colors, and then the
the switcheroo, the Cobra Scythe, and the GI Joe Green Hiss. What was it called?
I was like, no, you don't do that. Like you could have done that with every other vehicle, but that thing was expensive, and it's only gotten more expensive. Whereas, you know, True Heroes is making this right now. They just did a carrier helicopter. I think it's called like a UB-52 or something like that, or UB-51.
Oh,
did you see that?
It's the Jolly Green Giant. Is it what is it called? A Super 60 or Super 80 or something?
I think so.
Is it that thing?
Let me see.
Giant gray. Oh, what a beaut!
Yeah,
gee whiz.
They just did one. Helicopter.
So in other words, long live the generics, man.
Yeah.
I call them the generics, but I mean they are whatever you want to call them. They are GI Joe's competitors who have outlasted their inspiration, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, and what they're doing is they're following and making these vehicles more true to their real life counterparts. I mean, on the surface, there's no mistaking which vehicles these are supposed to be. Whereas the Joes, you know, they add that little bit of, I don't know, magic, design magic to them, you know, where it kind of is something else, you know. They take the wings from this thing and the cockpit from this thing, and they kind of put things together to avoid, any issues.
Slap removable missiles all over the surface.
Exactly. So, you know, I like that. I respect the fact that, you know, True Heroes can do that stuff, and I wish, you know, Hasbro would do it. But I think that the fact that we have all those things and you can...
They might get sued, buddy.
It's true. They probably would. They probably would.
I can only imagine, like, True Heroes, since their headquarters is probably in Hong Kong, or... It is, yeah. I don't know. I have no idea, really, but they probably do get away with murder.
Yeah.
Well, I think international patents are harder to enforce, more expensive.
True. That's true. That's very true. I think it's because I think though that since we have all this stuff, it makes it easier for you to complete the kind of Joe collection, you know, so to speak, that you want, because you have all these choices and you have all these things that you can integrate, and practicing that just appreciating what's out there and utilizing it just seems like it almost seems like a no-brainer, because you need certain things that Hasbro just will not make for whatever reason.
True. Yeah. Unless, of course, you're me, in which case you are limited to the run of figures and vehicles that happened between 1982 and 1994. I mean, it's disgusting, dude. I can't even dabble into like
Well, you have
the
though.
latter 90s stuff and the early 2000s stuff.
You
Sure, it's
have.
O-ring, but I'm like,
Like,
nah,
what about
nah.
like you? I know some of it is kind of, but you do have a decent bunch of stuff from the '90s. 'Cause
Sadly.
I don't
So I
know.
hope this discussion has had an impact on anyone else out there who might be able to break free from these kind of these molds.
Yeah,
But I don't know if I can be that guy, man.
it's too late for you. Do
It is. It really is.
But don't. So I remember you talking in like the last podcast. You guys were talking about you and your friend Alistair.
Alistair?
You were
Oh, yeah.
talking about you guys playing with Marauder's stuff. Do you incorporate
Sure.
Marauder's stuff into your you know what you do with your Joes now? I mean, they make better weapons. Some of that gear can.
It's got to be modern era only. So Marauder plays well with the modern era.
Uh huh.
Modern era plays well with Marvel superheroes in that scale.
Yeah.
But I do find that I'm a bit cheesed off that like obviously Star Wars has never upscaled their action figures. Like
Yeah.
they still are the same height, relative height with the O-ring GI Joes,
Yeah.
whereas Marvel Universe slash Marvel Legends 3 3/4 inch figures are now 4 inch figures, so they mesh with the G. Well, yeah, dude, I cannot have Nightcrawler tower over Boba Fett.
Well, yeah,
They
yeah.
cannot go on adventures together. I'm sorry, they cannot. Because like Nightcrawler needs to be a shorter stature kind of guy, and yeah, no, oh, dude, like I said, I'm a mess, complete mess.
Wow. Hey,
But my collection is very ordered, and I think pursuant to this, I'm going to shoot off a Steven's collection video,
yeah.
taking you through a guided tour over, over here we have Transformers and only Transformers. Over here we have Star Wars and only Star Wars. Here's where my Batwing lives because that's a scale that doesn't belong with anything
I
else.
know, right? I've been trying to sell my
Yeah, well,
Batmobile
that,
because
that
that thing's
toy doesn't belong anywhere else. I mean, where do you put it?
yeah,
It's the most awkward shape ever,
that's true. That's
and
very
it's
true.
and it's lethal. Those
It's
points will
they're
take an
sharp.
eye out.
Yeah, yeah, they're sharp. I'm trying to get rid of my Batmobile because it's just takes up too much space and I never mess with it. Like it's so big and just it's just awkward. Even I have it next to my other movie Batmobiles and or other
Mhm.
Batmobiles in general, and it's like they're underneath the shelf, so when you walk up, you can see the front ends of all of the Batmobiles. But then that one is like protruding, and you're almost tripping on it. It's just ridiculous. But I mean, it's cool. Don't get me wrong, but it's huge, and it just seems almost like ridiculous in size. Like it could have been a little bit smaller, but I mean, people wanted it. They wanted it that big. They wanted that scale. I love that it's a two-seater, but I'd be lying if I didn't point out how I think it's way oversized, way
Oh
oversized.
my. Oh my, Strident. Are you starting to pick up on my scale
Well, no, it's just the
scale OCD?
it's just the when I collect, a big thing has always been space. So like there's a few things that I always stick to when I'm in collecting in general, and that's uh, room in my man cave. So space. I know I'll run out of space at some point. So I was never super huge on vehicles. I had a handful of vehicles, and then over time I was kind of like, you know what? I'd find deals or something, and I just get them. So now I have a ton of GI Joe vehicles all over the place. Um, then there's I can only go. I used to collect 12-inch figures. I was real big into those, And then I got to a point where I was kind of like, I'm going to relax because I was running out of room for everything else because I had so many of those guys. And the thing with them was the prices of those figures were always going up, which, you know, is the next thing is price. You know, I budget out how much I want to spend a month if I'm going to spend anything, you know, each month. And, on toys, I mean, and I try not to go over it, you know. And sometimes when the price of some of this stuff goes up, especially since I collect import figures as well, you kind of are limited in what you can get for whatever the remaining amount of money is that you have. You know, if you get, you know, say it's $100 or say it's $150, and you buy, you know, 2 import figures that run you like $40-50. You know, that's $100 plus because shipping. You know, you might not really have room to get something else. But then I look at Joe's and they're a little bit cheaper. And you end up each month getting, you know, if say I decide not to get any import figures that month, then I end up getting a shit ton of Joe's. And my space that I have set aside for my Joe's is quickly getting full. Like I just moved some stuff. I switched shelves. And I'm looking at the Joe's I have up there. And that's not even all the Joe's I own. And I wanted to have all the Joes on the shelf. And then I realized, crap, I have Joes that I have in a different box because I planned on doing stuff with them, like Marauder stuff, and I haven't done it yet. So where am I going to put them? You know what I mean? I'm going to have to switch around something else or buy another shelf or something like that to make room for them. And I kind of hate doing that because I feel like I'm overdoing it. So, yeah, space, the size of what I'm collecting, and the, you know, the price is always a big thing, you know. I don't really want to buy. I don't want to buy more shelves. I think I have enough shelves. So it's just, what am I going to display today, you know, or this month, or what am I going to display for this, you know, 6 months? Because I'll rotate stuff sometimes too, but I rarely do that. But yeah, it's weird. Those are the only struggles I have with, you know, collecting. It's just making sure it all fits into that formula. But
oh man, you're preaching to the choir. I think vintage, modern era, it don't matter. We are all alike in that regard. It is a juggle for space, budget. Yeah, man, and that struggle is the same for us all.
Yeah.
But I think we've canvassed this topic all right. I mean, this, ladies and gentlemen, is a great coming together of 2 different types of collectors. But one thing is certain, we love this stuff, regardless of the era.
Very true.
I love me some modern era toys. I just can't display them alongside my vintage stuff. But as I say, you will all soon be witness to exactly how I choose to, I suppose, separate out my collection. And if you want to check out Strydent's videos, yeah, man, he's got some terrific integrations of various toy lines into his GI Joe world mythology. And that's always encouraging. That's cool. I want to be like you, man.
Nah, I'm trying to.
No, for real. For real.
I'm trying.
Like Tron vehicles? Holy shit.
Well, because I always thought, like, when I came up with Weaponsmith, I was like, he has to have a signature of what the stuff he makes would look like. So maybe I'll use Tron stuff because I found all that stuff on sale. I even have the plane. You remember there was a plane in Tron Legacy? They made a figure of that, or a vehicle of that, and or a toy of that. I found that on sale too. I think I got it for $20, and I saw it on eBay a while back, and it's up there now. So I'm glad I was able to find it.
And that is how you win.
Yeah,
to have a quality, cool vehicle that works with your Joe stuff at a price that's, you know, you just can't sneeze at.
Exactly.
Yeah, man. Nice.
So yeah,
great idea.
Well, guys, yeah.
I think that's a wrap on episode 101 of GI Joburg. This has been a fantastic, very lively debate.
Yes, indeed.
Hell, I don't even know if we could call it a debate. It seems like we agree on most things.
Yeah.
I'm just.
It's just a meeting.
A stick in the mud.
A meeting of the minds, as it were, where we just.
Oh, very good.
You know, just giving,
son of a teacher.
Just giving, you know, our perspectives, which is good, you know, but maybe someone listening might be caught between these things and, never think to, which that always surprises me, that there's people who, they'll see a review and they'll say, I never thought to do that. And all it is us playing with the toy, kind of the way that we think it's supposed to be played with, and someone else might be saying, I never thought to do that. And this might be that piece to give them the inspiration to do it, Take your Halo figures out, make them attack your Joes. Now you'll have a use for your accelerator suits that everybody hates so much. You can have them fight the Halo 3 figures, or take your accelerator suit guys, put them in your Defiant. Now you got guys in spacesuits. It's done. You know what I mean? Like, it's all about just using your imagination to make things fit where you need them to fit. But yeah, that's it for me. I think this was awesome. So
yeah, man. Thanks, Strydent.
Yeah, let's.
And even if you do pick just one piece of Joe that you cherish and want to collect, don't hate on guys that do like to expand their horizons.
Very true.
We all love this toy line. We can all love different facets, or love all facets. But yeah, don't ever be discouraging. I think we should all just perhaps watch our mouths sometimes. It's all too easy to say something that would, be misconstrued or, I don't know, inflammatory to the way other people like to collect.
That's
and
true.
I know I've personally been guilty of that.
Should I? I know I've done it. I know I've done it. I know I've done it. I'm not even gonna pretend. I know I've
So
done
this is Steve saying, yo, Joe, and keep collecting, guys.
All right, and I'm Strydent, and that's it for me. You guys have been great. Peace outside.
Peace outside. I was about to say it. Man, awesome.